Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. We've come over here to the JC Raulston Arboretum this morning in early January just to show off some of the things that just absolutely look amazing over here. I love coming to these gardens this time of year because you can see things that you can add to your garden, or just come. You can just come and enjoy, or find some things that are interesting. Maybe add some winter interest to your garden. Right here at the front of the JC Raulston Arboretum, you're greeted with these amazing Yuletide camellias. And Yuletide has the perfect name because we're the week after Christmas right here, and they're just absolutely in peak bloom. We were over here a few weeks ago before Christmas, same thing, absolute peak bloom. There are tons of buds on these that will continue to open over the next month or so. They have, these are true single flowers, so all the middle parts of the flower is exposed. And pollinators absolutely love these. It's a little cold this morning, but as the day warms up, we have 60-degree days. You'll see some honeybees taking advantage of these. These are evergreen, and they're actually just really nice overall, shiny green foliage, evergreen plants. But they happen to do this in the winter time. So with Yuletide, with these Chamia Sanquas like this, we'll start getting flowers on them as early as October. But most likely more in November, and then kind of peak flower in December. And they'll go up and down depending on how the weather's going. So if we had a night that was in the low 20s, most of these open flowers would probably be damaged. But the buds that are still on them that are tight would then open up as soon as it starts to get warm again. So I put a lot of stock on the channel, and I think everyone does, and how beautiful a flowering plant is like this, and how great that it's evergreen and all those kinds of things. But they have it interplanted with our native hydrangea quercifolia. And although it's lost most of its fall color at this point, these would have had really, really bright red fall color on them. And then they have this interesting exfoliating bark on them. And then ones where they had the flowers on them last year, the flowers are still hanging on them down here. So this is another, both of these are kind of 12-month, 4-season plants, just in a very different way. One of these is, native and has year-round, both have year-round interest. I'm just interested, it's an interesting combo to me, because you're gonna get the summer flowers on one and the winter flowers on the other, some fall color, evergreen, like we got a lot of things covered here. So on one side of the garden entry, we have those Yuletide camellias and the hydrangea, the oak leaf hydrangeas, and then another native over here to the right. These are Sable Palms or Palmetto Palms. This is a dramatic entrance to the garden here at the Raulston. They have this beautiful covered space. The kind of metal entry over top of all of this, and then these Palmetto Palms invite you in. These are not, they're really native to coastal areas of North Carolina and down through the south, but they are totally hardy up here. It helps that they are thinking about the fact that they're next to this brick sidewalk, and the asphalt road is right beside them. So they're also offered a little bit of protection out here, but they really don't need anything. Once they're established out here in a space like this, they're just great plants. I mean, just it's a great use of a North Carolina native plant to greet you to this beautiful garden. Came over here to the Raulston to see what was looking good, what was interesting in the garden here in this time of the winter, and I've barely made it into the gate. We've already got three plants, now a fourth one. This Buxus here, or Boxwood, is called Unraveled, and it's just such an interesting boxwood, where we tend to think of boxwoods as perfect little round balls or boxes, or however people are pruning them. This one just kind of has a mind of its own, and it has it's a weeping form. It can be kept low and almost allowed to look like it's crawling across the ground, or it can be allowed to creep up like these. These have been here for a long time, and just observing them over the years, you can let them come on up like this, where we're now at 4 or 5 feet, or again be just kept down in that 2-3 foot area. I really like this plant. It's just different. It's different than any other boxwood. I'm usually I just kind of walk past boxwoods and just keep on moving on. They're an important part of a garden. There's green things that just kind of stay the same year round. This is kind of the opposite of that. This one is, if you planted 10 of these, they'd all look different. than, you know, where normally we plant 10 boxwoods and we expect them to all look the same. But I just really like this plant. It's got a slightly larger leaf than some of the other boxwood varieties, and again, a mind of its own. We have a couple of aloe to show you off in a home tour at the house that are blooming, but we keep them in containers. We've got one called Safari Sunrise and then one other. What we do with the ones in the containers is we leave them outside as long as it's not super, super cold, and we just bring them in if it does get cold. But they have to get some cool air on them to flower. And so here we are in January in the garden here at JC Raulston Arboretum, and they've had a bunch of flower spikes have already come and gone, and then newer ones continuing to come up. They do have these where they're drying out during the winter time, which is the hardest thing for me in my clay soil at the house. I really can't put these aloe in the ground because I think they'll rot during the winter time. Or I could raise them way up, put them in some sort of gravel garden like this is, if I wanted to, which is what they've done. But it's not a cold issue, you know, for these aloe. It's more of a winter wet issue. So we leave them. They're very, very happy outside during our summers. And then sometime in the fall, we have to leave them outside. If we leave them outside long enough, get a few cool nights on them, they'll start to pop up these flower spikes, and then we can bring them in the house after that and watch them flower if we wanted to. We've continued just to leave ours outside because we just haven't had any severe cold on them. Or, you know, I'm also leave them a little bit root bound so they can't end up overwatering them. So if you have an aloe in a container and you're moving it from one to another, barely step it up each time, because it would offer the opportunity to rot it if you put it in a lot of, especially something like peat moss or something like that. But interesting, aloe blooming in the ground here in January. This is a super interesting cherry. This is Prunus incisa. Had it on the channel before, but it always just blows me away. I mean, this is January, and this is when this thing blooms. There's a lot of things up and blooming earlier just because we had some cold and then we've had some mild temperatures. But this is when this thing blooms. I mean, sometime during the month of January, we get a few warm days, and this Fuji cherry is going to bloom. This one's interesting. There's two of them here in the garden. They both have the same growth habit, which is kind of a mounding, wider habit. So if you were going to add this this cherry to your garden, you would, put it in a space where it can get some width. It kind of becomes a small, multi-trunked good colony, basically. There's probably 20 trunks down here on the bottom coming from the middle, creating this wide weeping habit, almost Japanese maple, like almost weeping Japanese maple, like great flowers. This incredible pop of color that just comes out on a couple mild days in the late winter. If you have room and you have space to put in lots of trees, here's one that blooms in January. One of the real standouts in the garden over here at the Raulston is all of the evergreen ferns. So there's absolute ton of ferns here. There's also selaginellas or club mosses and a few other fern-like or fern-looking plants as well in the garden here at the Raulston. And a lot of them are evergreen, and so they really are incredible standouts here during the winter months. Some of them turn bronzy colors, others continue to keep their green color through the winter. Most of them are really, really super soft textured. Just great, this kind of moist, and they've got this it's in a raised bed, but it is a kind of moist conditions under the shade, the lath house here at the Raulston. It's just a huge collection of them, and it's one of those things I would consider, even after 37 years in this business, I have really probably one of the things I would like to dive into a little bit more. And here at the Raulston, there's definitely an opportunity to do that. There's just a ton of them. Definitely want to show off this Daphne Adora here. This one's called Nakufu. The leaves on it have this kind of curled ends. The variegation is just looks like every leaf is just kind of painted on it. It's budding up right now, so that's the reason to have the camera so close to it. The buds are starting to form. These Daphne Adora will bloom. They'll start to open flower buds, typically in our area in middle February. Just depends on how warm it is. These are formed so early, I think, as long as it continues to stay mild. And by mild, I mean our nighttime temperatures right now are, I'm out here early in the morning, it's probably 33, 34 right now. It was 28, 29 overnight. That's not enough to hurt, and then 50 to 60 during the day. That'll wake one of these, get these Daphne actually going. Lots of different green varieties, lots of different variegated varieties. Notice it's in a raised bed. There's several underneath the shelter here, different variegations, interesting, just other interesting cultivars, named varieties. They do not like wet feet, so they can really struggle in the garden. They can be short-lived, they can be finicky, but I can come over here to the Raulston and see all of these. When the flowers open on these, there's nothing that's more fragrant. There's nothing. I mean, there's just almost nothing like it. I rooted, grew, and sold Daphne Adora at the Raleigh Farmers Market for 20 years. And on February 15th to March 1st, I would bring these out on a Saturday in bloom in 1-gallon containers. And if you just had 20 of them sitting together, people would, on the other end of the building, come looking for what it was. The fragrance is, again, it's like nothing else. I'm not really drawn to a lot of fragrances, but this one, to me, has a great scent, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Again, they're in a raised bed. If you're going to get a plant like this, it may have some issues with wet feet. You got to think it through. How are you going to plant it? You're going to use expanded slate in the soil or something to make sure that it's always draining well. This is a Rhia Japonica. This one's called Fuji no Yuki, a variegated Rhia Japonica. This is one of the most underused plants, I think, in our gardens here. There are, I don't know how many there are here at the Raulston. And so if you're coming here, you'd know about them, but a lot of times I think if you may find Rhia at your garden center. A lot of times it'll just be some, a green one only, but there are a ton, and I forget, somebody told me, and I don't want to exaggerate it, but there are hundreds and hundreds of named Rhia Japonica in Japan. And there are lots of them represented here in the garden at the Raulston. This one has a very broad white band on the edge. Think of these Rhia as hosta that don't die back to the ground. So here we are in January. We have this striped foliage. There's spotted foliage ones, striped foliage ones, green ones with wide leaves, one with narrow leaves, just all over the place. In the fall, they get a spike of red fruit right down near the base that's quite decorative as well. The deer tend to avoid Rhia, where they'll eat hosta to the ground. So that's another important comparison to, and look how it looks so good with this rock sitting next to it, the lichen growing on the rock, the moss on these stones that are around here, the concrete wall that they built around it, but super underused Rhia Japonica. This is Chimonanthus praecox, or fragrant winter sweet. Every time I do a fragrant flower video or talk about fragrance, this is one that always comes up in the comments. It's one of the earliest flowering plants every year, and it has an incredible fragrance. And sometimes I forget about this one. It blooms so early in the year that I just forget to mention it when I'm talking about fragrant plants later in the season, when the gardenias or maybe other things are blooming at that time. This thing has really striking bright yellow flowers that are just incredibly fragrant. You just get a few warm days here in the winter time, or very, very, very early spring, and it really shows off, and just just stopped us in our tracks. Had to come and find it because you know what it is when you smell it, but it's I didn't know exactly where it was sitting, but it got us from many feet away. It drew us in over here. But again, this is one I probably haven't covered enough over the years. Having a conversation with a crow, apparently. This is Pittosporum heterophyllum variegatum, or variegated Pittosporum. This is one of my absolute favorite plants here at the Raulston. Has been for a while. It's planted right off the side of the Great Lawn here. The variegation's super interesting. A little different than Pittosporum tabiri, which is, we have several varieties of in our garden at the house that has a larger leaf on it. And those tend to be from very small little dwarfs up to just giant plants. This one I've seen here at the Raulston. It's about 3.5 feet tall, again, not being pruned, wider than tall. And then there's one down at the Juniper Level Botanic Garden as you drive into the driveway. It's on the left. It's also around 3 or 4 feet in height and wider than this one. It's obviously been in the ground a little longer than this one, but this thing seems to height control itself somewhere around 3 to 4 feet. Beautiful variegation. We finally got one of these last year. It's kind of hard to find if you're a grower watching this. I don't think there's a better evergreen ornamental plant in this entire garden or our garden at the house than this particular one. I really, really love this plant. Most of the things I've shown you in the video are findable in some way or another. Hopefully this pittosporum, this variegated pittosporum becomes more available in time as well, because I just love this plant. It's easy, low maintenance, part shade. Part shade is going to be kind of ideal. It's stretching out for the light just a bit. It might be in a hair more shade than it wants to be in, because I can just see every branch is angled a little bit into a gap up here between the trees. But one of my top plants here at the Raulston Arboretum in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love coming over here in January and see what's showing off, and you know, kind of peak winter time. A little warmer than normal, but kind of peak winter time over here. There's always something interesting and always something fun to see. Some fairly rare things over here that shouldn't be rare. It's one of the reasons this garden was started in the first place, was to introduce plants into the American landscape through a real trial program of putting them in the ground, letting them kind of take whatever conditions happen and see if they're going to be have any invasive tendencies, so we can get rid of those before they get added out into the world. See if they, how they perform, again, without a whole lot of maintenance, so people can reduce, water usage and those kinds of things out in the world. And unfortunately, for some strange reason, some of these plants that are performing extremely well and are great examples to nurserymen everywhere have not been added out into the trade. And so I think that's a little bit of a shame. And if I was still in the nursery business, I slap the back of my hand as well. When I was in the nursery business, it's just kind of easy sometimes to pick, 100 things and just run with them that, people just kind of know about. But there are super interesting things here at the Raulston. Thanks for watching.